Now, time for the quick picks.
Some of these critics, these pundits.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They'd like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
All right, you are welcome along to the quick picks. We have everyone on the line, I believe. We've got Aisling, how are you?
Morning, Owen, how are you?
Very well. Tommy, what's the crack?
Good morning, folks. How are we?
And Adrian Barry with a different background. Adrian, how are you getting on?
Full house.
Where are you, Adrian?
I'm on the line on speaking to OTB AM this morning, and I've made a little note here of the elitism on Tailteann Cup final weekend. The elitism that's already been displayed in Ireland. It's great that they're playing for a holiday fund. It's not just pride they're playing for. Jeez, could you be more patronising?
Why? What else is what else is there to play for? Pride, the Tailteann Cup. Do they need a holiday funds to kind of rubber stamp this thing?
It's a national final of significance for the second tier of teams on. I'm all for it, you know. 60 grand, and we were talking about the Cavan PRO. He or she needn't worry too much about it. We're going another direction, obviously. 60 grand in a group. What would they be in a group like? 45-ish. Travelling party, assume between squad and back room and all that sort of stuff. 60 grand won't go very far.
Are you going on tomorrow?
I won't be able to make it, but I'll be watching it.
Good stuff. Right, let's get into our picks. I think we are going to start with the Tailteann Cup final. It is Westmeath against Cavan tomorrow. Let's see who we're picking. Oh, we've got a split vote here. So myself and Ashton are going for Cavan. Tommy, Will and Adrian are going for Westmeath. Adrian, we'll just stick with you for the sec. You believe your boys are going to do it?
I think it could be a cracker. I do think they'll come out the right side of it. I don't think there isn't very much clearly between the teams. I think it could be an absolute belter of a game. When you look at the score lines that the two of them have put up across the year, two of them put up big scores. In Westmeath's case, that includes in the provincial championship 215 against Kildare even. And I know that were within a goal of Kildare, obviously, in the end. It definitely didn't tell the full story of the game, but it did show capacity. And I've been very frustrated with Westmeath for the last 10 plus years in their inability to put up any more than 12 or 13 points in any one game, and they've blitzed that out the gate this year. And Cavan have done likewise in games as well. How the very tight win obviously over Sligo pushes the pin of their collar in a way that Westmeath weren't against a depleted Offaly. How all that plays out will be difficult to see, but will be interesting to see. But it's been interesting because both of them as well have really flitted in and out of games, like including Cavan were 6 or 7 points up against Sligo early on, and I had said on this show before that Westmeath, when they're on it, I think could put it up against any of the most of the best teams in the country when they play for that 15 or 20 minutes, which they just haven't been able to put together for 70 minutes. I don't expect that to happen this weekend either. I expect both of them to fade in and out of the game, which could definitely lend itself to that idea of the cracker. It's almost like both of them have the NBA Jam catch-up mode on at various points to allow the other team into it, to put together a run in 10 or 15 minutes where they're just lashing over scores and drawing themselves back into the match. And if that plays out the way Foreman have suggested it might, it could be an absolute belter.
You've mentioned crackers so many times, Adrian. I just can't stop thinking about cheese.
I'm watching Derry girls.
And I just can't help but ask and reveal, how is the cheese in France? I mean, you are in France. I mean, people think there's a lovely French curtain behind you. Like, how is the wine and the cheese in France? This is you in your element.
I haven't had a huge amount of cheese so far. I've had a little bit of wine, but technically I'm still working this week on, so
okay.
You know yourself.
Yeah.
Keeping it under wraps.
Yeah. Tommy, it felt that a couple of weeks ago there was consensus that Cavan were going to be Tailteann Cup champs. There was nothing that anybody could do to stop them. So why all of a sudden are we all very uncertain about the outcome of tomorrow?
Well, Owen, it depends on who you were talking to back then a couple of weeks ago.
You've been Westmeath from the start, have you?
I call Westmeath from the very start.
All right.
So Westmeath were my team to win the Tailteann Cup. Yeah, 100%. So it's going to be tight. As Adrian said, it's going to be a cracker. I like the way Adrian was talking about the NBA catch-up mode. For me, it's about who has the best purple patch. Like that's the most important part that's going to happen here this weekend. And when the other team gets on top, can they be quelled? So Cavan have plenty of shooters across the board. Westmeath are the same. And I'm just backing the likes of John Heslin to just get them over the line. There's a supporting cast now in Westmeath that have come to the fore over the last little while, and Ronan O'Toole, Sam McCartan, even Lorcan Dolan. That's going to be very close. Like, but when you go through that list of Cavan footballers, there's a lot of quality in that team. Faulkner full back, Clark at 6. You've got Galligan and Smith in midfield, 2 shooters, 2 quality box office footballers, and that's before you get to the likes of Paddy Lynch and Gerard McKiernan. So this is going to be a quality game of football.
Aisling, you're on our side of the fence here with Cavan. You've stuck, and I know there was a couple of red flags, I think, in that semi-final against Sligo, to be honest, but you've stuck firm with Cavan for this final.
Yeah, Owen, I have, but it wasn't easy to decide. I was sort of swayed toward Westmeath just on their recent form. I think they've been getting better and better, really improving. They're exciting to watch. But it just swayed me from the Ulster Championship and seeing what Cavan can do. And I think when it comes down to it, we're in Croke Park, there's silverware on the line, the experience that Cavan have. Tommy just went through some of the players there. I think this will mean a hell of a lot to them. And I think they can turn it on when they want to turn it on. Mickey Graham is an unbelievable manager. They really buy into what he says, and they really back him. And I think that they can go all the way if they put the performance that I know they can put in. We've seen them in the Ulster Championship. We've seen them with a few really surprising results over the years as well. I say 2020 against Donegal in that Ulster final as well. So yeah, I think when it matters most, Cavan will show up. But look, Westmeath have been brilliant. The likes of John Heston, even the likes of Luke O'Loughlin coming on off the bench a lot of the times. He's been epic this year as well. So they have that strength and depth through the squad. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a brilliant final. But isn't it great that we're still seeing these teams at this time of year in the final looking for silverware? It's brilliant to see. Yeah,
and it's great that there's a 60 grand bounty on the head of the Tailteann Cup as well this year. I think, Adrian, you'd be rightly salivating when you look at Cavan getting opened up a little bit in the second half of that Tailteann Cup semi-final. I think that would show that there's going to be plenty of opportunity for that Westmeath attack to card them open at the weekend. But I think the Mickey Graham factor has to be brought into account there as well. Surely lightning can strike twice. He'll have looked at their own tape. He doesn't even need to study Westmeath. He'll look at his own tape and say, we can be a hell of a lot better. So they won their semi-final without being really, really good, I would say, Cavan, especially at the back. I thought they looked quite vulnerable, and I expect them to fix it tomorrow, and that's why I'm going for a Cavan win. But the majority on the quick picks are going for Westmeath, because Will is going for Westmeath as well. Final word, Tommy, before we move on to the semi-finals. You were about to come in there.
Sorry, Owen. Yeah, it just all depends on what Cavan turns up. Is it the Cavan team that won Ulster in 2020, or is it a team that lost a relegation playoff to Wicklow and Navan in 21 to go down to Division 4?
Probably the one we've seen this year, the team that didn't get annihilated in Ulster, the team that did win the Division 4 final, that did win their Tailteann Cup semi-final. They're in the final for a reason. They haven't got here by losing games.
No, 100%. I'd argue with you though that there was 2 Cavans that appeared this year. The football that was played in the Division 4 final was pedestrian stuff.
Yeah, it was bad.
And it was a world apart from the Cavan we saw against Donegal.
Yeah.
And I just think that little bit of inconsistency in Cavan is why I'm edging towards Westmeath.
The two of them show the same stuff. That's the thing. They can turn up on the day, which that's the reason. Either of these teams on the day, if they play to the top of their quality, would be at home in an All-Ireland quarter final.
Yeah.
If both teams play to the top of their quality, who wins?
Westmeath.
See, yeah. I don't think. I think Cavan. Yeah, I think if both teams play to the top of their quality, Cavan win, and that's kind of what we're probably disagreeing on here.
I just think Leinster's a bit stronger than Ulster, lads. And
of course. Yeah, how could you possibly disagree with that? Okay, so it is 3 for Westmeath, 2 for Cavan. Let's move on to our first semi-final. Which let's go with Kerry Dublin first to see where people are going on this one. Okay, everybody's going for Kerry except Adrian. Who's your daddy Barry? Why have you gone against Kerry, Adrian?
Now that you've painted that way on, I'm starting to doubt myself already. But there isn't very much between them. There is nothing between either of these games, any of the three of them, in fact. And I think that there are still question marks about Kerry. They had nothing to do to win. Like, we don't actually really know the true personality of this Kerry team yet, to be honest with you. This year, they had nothing to do to win Munster. They beat a Mayo side. Like, how much do we read into had they beat the Mayo side, who were a group who were coming to the end of an era, who were dead on their feet, or was that really a really good Mayo side? We know they're really good individual players, but was it a really good side? So, on that basis, was it a really impressive win? It's impossible to know, and so there's big question marks about them, and that's part of I feel it's the former, obviously, and that's why I'm leaning towards Dublin. They have the scar tissue of Cork a couple of years ago, the scar tissue of Tyrone. Very difficult to know where they're at. You know, I heard you were saying earlier on about Kieran Cunningham reporting this morning that Con is 50-50. They're not bad odds. And if he is 50-50, maybe he starts. And if he starts, I expect Dublin to win.
Aisling, you disagree?
Yeah, I do think it's going to come down to if Con starts or not. And I know you shouldn't really put it down to one player, but that's actually the way you talk about Dublin now, when we never, ever would have talked about Dublin that way. You know, one player does not make a team. I know that, but, you know, you would have always seen the impact of the bench, and that would have made a big difference. But I don't look at Dublin that way anymore. And Con, when he came back, obviously we didn't see him for the league. He came back in Championship, and he was such a spark in that full forward line. And even the way he creates scores, yes, he scores a hell of a lot himself, but he creates scores. He creates the space. He does a hell of a lot for that forward line. And I think he was missed big time against Cork. So I think if they don't have him, or they don't have him fully fit, because it is a hairline fracture, we think, we're not sure, nobody knows. We're not going to know till probably a few minutes before the game. But I think without him, it's probably a big task. But I do think it'll be a brilliant game. It's going to be close. Some of the matchups are going to be fascinating to see. And if David Clifford as well is fully fit, we don't know, but it'd be great to see the both of them out there from a neutral point of view. But I just think that the Kerry have righted some of the wrongs from last year. Like, we used to talk about the defensive issues last year. We talked about it at the show the other night on that, you know, that was the thing with Kerry, that these defensive issues, and Paddy Tally's come in, we can see that they've tightened up at the back. And I just think that they definitely have enough to get over Dublin this time. It has to be now on.
Wasn't it the 2006 World Cup where everybody became unbelievably aware of what your metatarsal was because of what Wayne Rooney was going through in the build up to it? Everybody is an expert in hairline fractures this week, and that may not even be the thing that Conor Callaghan has. He may not even have a hairline fracture. It just seems to have been the buzzword this week. Tommy, I obviously misremembered the football pod. I thought you'd actually tip Dublin on the football pod, but you're going for Kerry.
No, I'm going for Kerry, and just in terms of experts on hairline fractures, we have James O'Donoghue on the football pod, who has had a number of hairline fractures over the years. And when I told James the news that was reported in the Star earlier the week, he said, where? And I went looking in the report, and there was no information about where that hairline fracture was. Now, I've heard Saints, and I'm not going to say it because I haven't got a second source on it where it is. But James says if it's in your arm, you can make it happen. If it's in your leg, you've no chance. Now, the fact that the Star are reporting again this morning that it's 50-50, the same paper that reported that it was a hairline fracture, this would lead me to believe that Conor Callaghan isn't right, but Dublin are going to play him, that he is going to start, that he is, as Aisling said, he is that important.
So Tommy, can I ask you a question? Like, so if a few weeks ago you know that you'll only get Con for maybe one game, are you picking Cork, are you picking Kerry, or are you picking Derry / Galway? You're probably picking Kerry, to be fair.
Totally. I'd like 100%. If you're Dublin, that Dublin team that sure they don't have the same depth, the same strength and depth, but they still have 4 or 5 generational players. They still have 7 or 8 players with multiple All-Ireland, 13 players with multiple All-Ireland medals. You're going to back yourself against most teams. Kerry are the team that are coming, but the only doubts about Kerry at the minute is that propensity to shoot themselves in the foot. It's to fall short against Cork. It's to get caught against Tyrone. And sure, there was varying reasons for all of those, but Kerry just haven't proven it yet. On paper, it looks like Kerry are stronger. It looks like they have more options on the bench. They absolutely have more options on the bench. And their starting 15, in my eyes, the graph of it appears to be marginally stronger than Dublin. That's the way it looks, but they have to prove it. And, you know, as I said all week, this Sunday is where you prove it. Like, this is where you prove you're good enough.
This is like just such an unbelievably exciting prospect. It is it is the most important game in the careers so far of all of these Kerry players, like with the exception of those who actually won the All-Ireland in 2014. It is the most important day of their sporting lives. Like, these are the Normandy beaches approaching them right now as they look ahead to Sunday. Like, this is huge significance. I don't think we've actually paid enough attention to what happens if Kerry lose on Sunday. Of course, you're going to have the very Kerry focused backlash, but also you've got Dublin back in an All-Ireland final, favourites for an All-Ireland final. I think whoever wins the semi-final will be favourites for the All-Ireland final, and potentially back on the wagon when it comes to winning All-Irelands. The conversations around how do you stop the Dubs will come back up again, and that is the huge significance that this game has, and probably an acute realisation that what Mayo did last year in beating Dublin wasn't killing the Dubs, it was just stopping them from doing 7 in a row. That was it. The Dubs could very well be back and win another few All-Irelands here. It could be like Kilkenny in the mid-2010s. The sting in the tail could actually last for quite some time. I think that the ripples from this weekend are going to be significant, whichever way Sunday goes.
If they lose, Owen, and it will be a frightening prospect from anyone from the kingdom. But it's 13 years now since Kerry have beaten Dublin in a championship game. And most of those games, 11, 13, 16, 19 twice, they've all been close. They've all been in the mix. They've all been in the melting pot. But Dublin kept getting over the line. None of us feel like this is the same Dublin that, 17, 18, 19, they were at the peak during that 5 in a row, 6 in a row run. If Kerry can't get by Dublin, a wounded Dublin this week, there's a problem there that isn't football.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's a wounded Kerry as well, is the thing. Like, obviously David Clifford limping around the last day, like 5-10 minutes in, we were all going, well, he has to come off now. And then suddenly he's still kicking points, obviously. And look, they obviously have quality everywhere. But I do wonder about that point about, like, well, I see P-Well74 here saying Kerry under most pressure this weekend, and this group always crack with pressure. I don't know if that's exactly right, but we don't know where they're at, really, this Kerry team. Like, this is the first proper test of Kerry this year.
Yeah, and you just gotta. It all depends on how much you read into how good they've been on paper and any sort of nuggets you've taken from the league, which isn't very much. So yeah, there's a lot to be figured out on Sunday for sure, and a lot of uncertainty coming into this game on a number of fronts. The same really can't be said of Armagh against Derry against Galway on Saturday tomorrow, because we have heard a little bit more from these camps. We have seen Rory Gallagher come out and do a little bit of media in the build up to the game, and everybody, with the exception of Tommy, is backing Derry. So, Tommy, this is like an anti-football pod movement. I was surprised listening to you guys this week saying that Galway should be favourites. I think the bookies have Derry favourites, but I think you were making the point that Galway should be favourites. I disagree. I think Derry are rightly favourites for this game. But Tommy, you think Galway are going to get over the line and back into an All-Ireland for the first time in 21 years?
Surprised it's 4-1. I'm really surprised by that. Really surprised by that.
Galway.
An easy call, actually. Galway is an easy call. It's
how is Galway an easy call? Explain that.
Because this Derry group are so young in their journey, right? And all this stuff about they have to lose one to win one and all that sort of stuff. So it's
they've won the Ulster title
at the side of a team who look at absolutely. And you and Aisling have been bigging them up most of the year. I'm sort of surprised that you've gone. I'm very surprised you've gone to Galway, to be honest. But yeah, it's easy to say that they're too early in the journey. Another couple of years down the line, and they'll be back here. And, a Galway team who, admittedly, is at 5 or 6 from the 2018 semi-final. They're still there. It's been a big turnaround there. But a Galway team who've been at this stage have a few players with it in that sort of muscle memory in the bank. It's an easy call, Tommy.
I thoroughly disagree. I think it is an utterly different Galway team that was there in 2018. Actually, very few of them have been there. And actually, Galway are very, very early in their journey under Pádraig Joyce. I just feel that once they got Sean Kelly back and they got through that epic against Armagh, that brings a team together in a way that words can't define. Same with the Ulster title with Derry a couple of weeks ago. I just think Derry were primed for Ulster. We had Rory Gallagher on the football pod last November, October, and you could just feel it. He was targeting Ulster. He was waiting for Tyrone.
Didn't look like it
against
against
Clare. He had
Clare.
in his sights. He even said it during the week. He hasn't really watched Galway this year. Now, I don't fully believe that, but I do believe how tunnel visioned he was during Ulster. 100%.
Because you have to be.
100% you have to be, Aisling.
You have to just focus on that in order to get out of that, to put up those big performances. You meet the big teams in Ulster. It's not like other provinces. So
totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But I just that's why I feel like Derry were ready to go, and I doubted them in the All-Ireland quarter-final. I still backed them, but I felt like there would be questions asked of them. Clare didn't ask those questions, but I feel like most other counties would have asked questions of Derry in Croke Park, and I feel like Galway, who bet them in the league, not that we're going to read too much into that, Galway have too many threats, and that's what I think. Galway have too many threats. Derry will need to rack up, and I know they've hit 118 after extra time or 116 after extra time and 312 against Monaghan. I don't think Galway are going to concede the same goals. I just don't think they are.
No.
Even though they have so many threats, can I just ask, if they have so many threats, right, having said all of that, they obviously have one player of a generation, marquee forward. If they get the mockers on Shane Walsh, is that not it?
No. Robert Finnerty has shot the lights out because he's been number 3 in every game. He's been a number 3 Galway attacker. And last week against Armagh, it wasn't the A team that stood up. It was the B side. It was Matty Tierney. It was Killian McDade. and it was Finnerty who stood up. It wasn't Comer, Walsh and Conroy. I just feel like Derry are quality. They're a brilliant team. I've loved watching them this year. I'm just edging. I'm surprised it's 4-1. I really am. I think it's the easy call to go for the Finch champions.
No, it's possibly, but I think that you can cut as deep into that Derry attack as well and come up with big performers too. I think it's extremely tight. Just that thing about the last day, Tommy. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm getting spooked a little bit about Clare's no-show last Saturday. But are we sure that is the sort of thing that brings a team on? Are we sure that it's a positive experience for them, needing extra time and penalties and the whole fallout from the brawl and having to go through jump through the hoops to ensure that Sean Kelly did get off, even though it was a no-brainer that he would get off? I'm not sure that all amounts to something that we can speak to as a reason why Galway are going to win. Derry's build-up has been perfect. They had a cakewalk in an All-Ireland quarter-final to settle the nerves. They've played and they've won in Croke Park, and they've got the sort of, we're Ulster champions only off their back. They've won their quarter-final, won it well. I think they're in a perfect place. If we're talking about positioning and being in the right mood for a semi-final, I think Derry, of all the 4 teams actually, are in the most in the most special place, if you want to use that phrase.
Derry are in unfamiliar territory though. Derry are now favourites, regardless of whether it's
they were at the quarter-final as well though.
Yeah, but you could go out with your chest out that day, and they did, and actually
they will this Saturday for sure. They'll go out with their chest out.
But what I'm saying is that Galway have more punch, far more punch than Clare. Far more punch. That's Chris McKay wrapped up Keelan Sexton. Derry didn't even put Brendan Rodgers on a Clare attacker. They didn't bother. They put Brendan Rodgers in midfield. So, if Derry don't put Rodgers on a Comer, they're going to put him on McDade to try and stop one of Galway's threats from further out the pitch. My point is that Galway just have more punch going forward, and Galway's defensive system, while Galway, there's a flakiness about Galway 100%. You saw the goals that Armagh got laid on. You saw how Roscommon were 9 points down and they nearly caught them. Mayo nearly caught them. There's absolutely a flakiness about Galway 100%. They're not perfect, but I just think they have too many threats across the pitch. And I called Derry against Tyrone months ago, and I probably haven't backed them a huge amount since. I thought there were good odds for the Ulster. I'm not backing them in this All-Ireland semi-final.
Okay. Well, there was unanimity on the football pod. If anybody from Galway is feeling a little bit unloved this morning, both James and Paddy, and of course Tommy, backed Galway to win this game tomorrow afternoon. But on the quick picks this morning, of course, the gurus here know better than Paddy Andrews and James.
Who's leading the way?
Do we have a scoreboard? I'm not sure we do. I don't. Oh no, we do. Ashling's leading the way, and Adrian is bottom of the table. I'm not sure if these statistics are correct,
they're
but
absolutely not right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get in there, but I'd be afraid of how Derry frustrate teams. I think they'll get in Galway's head. They're just dogs when it comes to that. So I think if it gets into a fight, who's going to come out on top? I think Derry will frustrate teams. Think of the matchup as well. With
think of the Armagh fight. How could you have come up against a team who are more ready for a psychological fight? Armagh, who've been in 3 brawls already,
would be ahead of Armagh in that aspect.
No, I don't think so.
Well, this year I do.
In terms of fighting, in terms of football, maybe Derry are ahead of Armagh,
no,
but not in terms of fighting.
Not as in toughness out on the pitch, get into your head, mind games, that type of thing. I think Derry are ahead of the game in that. Rory Gallagher has it read into them.
I think Galway have come through the most psychological, physical test they will have so far, and it'll stand to them.
I have been impressed with Galway this year and how they're improving. But I just think, I think Derry can go the whole way. Said it earlier on in the year. Say it again.
Okay, Aisling, Tommy, good stuff. Adrian, where are you off to today?
Go on, Ash. You called it last year.
Derry's going to the All-Ireland. Adrian, where will you be watching the game from tomorrow?
I need to get down to Sheridan's Zone and get myself sorted out. I'll wait for the morning and then and take it from there.
I mean, the lie is up, Adrian. We know you're in France.
Sheridan.
Oh, yeah. Do we just stop asking questions about this now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, enjoy it wherever you are in that mystically good-looking place. The sun peering out from the curtain over your shoulder. Good stuff. That's this week's quick picks.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.